The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. My name is Aubrey McLaughlin. I am the Director of Alumni Professional Networks for the University of Maryland's Alumni Association. We're excited that you're able to join us for today's webinar, The 5 Critical Aspects of Keeping Employees Engaged at Work, presented by Joey Price, graduate from the class of 2008 and a 2011 graduate from the University of Maryland University College for a Master of Science in Human Resource Management. This webinar is part of the Alumni Association's Professional Development Webinar Series, in which we hope to provide thought-provoking and valuable content that will help alumni like you achieve your personal and professional goals. We have a lot of information to cover today, but we will be taking questions throughout the presentation. Please feel free to submit any questions at any time using the question box located in the GoToWebinar control panel. Joey is an award-winning human resources executive, business coach, thought leader, and professor. He is the founder of Jumpstart HR LLC, an HR consulting practice specifically for small businesses and startups, and host of Business, Life, and Coffee, a weekly personal and professional development podcast. As the CEO of Jumpstart HR, Joey innovates by creating HR solutions for small business owners and startup founders who want to build a better, more competitive business. As a podcaster on the Business, Life, and Coffee show, Joey shares carefully curated conversations on personal finance, psychology, professional development, and business for emerging professionals and business owners alike. BLC is a podcast focused on enhancing the quality of your business and life through relevant content that endures over time. Joey is a recent SHRM Top 30 Under 30 award winner, one of Forbes magazine's Kevin Kier's top 100 employee engagement experts in the world, and frequently cited HR and startup thought leader in publications such as Forbes, HR Magazine Inc., Business Week, Amex Open Forum, Money Magazine, and more. And now we will get started. Joey, take it away.
Aubrey, thank you for having me today for the webinar, and I am glad to be a proud Maryland alum, as I'm sure many of you are who are joining the program today. As Aubrey mentioned, the topic of our webinar is, if you build it, they will come, but will they stay? 5 critical aspects of keeping employees engaged at work. And today is meant to be more of a conversational tone, quite reflective of your organization. And I'm going to just provide some context of what I mean by employee engagement and the importance behind it, but also you'll walk away with some practical tips and practical applications that you can use to improve engagement at your organization. I am totally open for interruptions and conversation. This won't be a scripted talk. So if any conversations or comments pop up in the chat, Aubrey is free to interrupt me while I'm chatting, and we will address those as they come. And then, of course, there will be time for conversation afterwards. As I mentioned, and as Aubrey mentioned, I'm Joey Price. What you really need to know is that I am passionate about helping small businesses succeed. I am passionate about growing small teams, and I'm passionate about your experience at work. Just a few details is that I'd love to hear from you. So again, there's an opportunity to chat, as well as the survey that will be delivered at the end of the presentation. I believe that will be sent through email. If you're following along with the conversation and something jumps out at you that you want to share with the Twitter sphere or with Facebook or LinkedIn, be sure to use the hashtag that will be represented throughout the slides. That's employee me engagement. That's a preview to a talk that I'm doing on this very topic. And if you want more trainings and learnings, you can visit humanresources.teachable.com for more self-service HR training resources provided by Jumpstart HR. So as we jump into our training today, I really want you to first take a look in the mirror. And you're staring at a computer screen right now, so you're not going to look in an actual mirror, but I want you to reflect on your experiences at work. I want you to think about what you enjoy most about your current organization, what things you wish would change, and what things keep you motivated and excited about being at your work. Because the reality is, as much as you are here today to learn about employee engagement strategies for your employees, you should be in this for yourself as well. It's very important that you are enjoying your work experience, whether you are the business owner, whether you're HR, whether you're a people manager, or whether you are a supporting team player. Your experience at work matters first and foremost. And I think if we can set the tone and context with that fact first, that will help you embrace the rest of the conversation that we're having today as far as why is employee engagement important? Well, it's not just important because it's good for your team members. It's important for yourself. You know, so often we can be in this service mindset of we've got to serve others. We've got to make this a great place to work for employees. We've got to make this a great place where customers feel like they're invited and welcome. But now is the opportunity for you to get selfish in the time that we have today. And I feel like the more you embrace this for yourself, you will be a huge advocate for some of the principles that we discuss on our time today in this course. So my question to you is, whose job is it to manage employee engagement at your office? If you want to go ahead and drop some chats in the chat box just to either say, you know, who is officially responsible on your hierarchy and in your org chart, or just who do you think is responsible? The answer might surprise you, but I'll give you a few seconds to drop your comments in there. And when I say whose job is it to manage employee engagement, what I mean by that is, you know, where does the buck stop? We all have to carry our nets in the responsibility. Well, I just gave it away, but we all have to carry some responsibility in employee engagement. But there are various key players that have a significant role in making sure that happens. Leadership is responsible for managing employee engagement from the standpoint of creating an environment or creating an organization that people want to work for. Leaders make decisions about pay, leaders make decisions about who you serve as customers, and leaders make decisions about the team and how it operates and how it flows. HR manages employee engagement because they're more of the culture champions at your organization. HR, whether you have a dedicated department or if you have someone serving in that capacity, just wearing HR as amongst multiple hats, or if you work with an outside consultant who comes in and provides HR functions. HR is responsible for what I would consider the landscaping of the environment that leadership creates. So leadership creates the place to work. HR manicures the place you work. And then you as an individual, and this is you as in every single employee, plays a role in making sure that employees are engaged and motivated at work. And just for a standpoint of setting a working definition of employee engagement, I like to define employee engagement as when an employee is engaged when they are motivated to work, they understand their work, and they know what outcomes they're striving for, and they work towards those outcomes. All right. How does employee engagement affect my company? Well, one of the big things that HR gets a bad rap sometimes, or the human resources discipline gets a bad rap for at times, is that it's considered a cost center. It's considered an aspect of the organization where the employees at work do not directly contribute to the bottom line or to the profits of an organization. And I'd argue that that is an incomplete picture of the role that HR plays and the roles that your HR strategy and your talent strategy plays on your office. I believe that there is a direct correlation between the functions that HR plays and the quality of your product the quality of your services and the quality that people bring to their workforce. If I were to ask you to reflect on a time that HR really made you feel excited about working, you probably have examples. And if I asked you to give a time where maybe HR messed up your paycheck, or if they, rallied behind a policy that really lowered morale, those have direct impacts on the quality of our output as employees at work. One of the leaders at Southwest Airlines says, every employee has a customer. And so if HR considers the internal employees as their internal customers, then you could really say that, we're driving profit by serving the employees who then in turn serve our customers. So employee engagement affects the company because it can really reduce the output of your organization. Now, I use this imagery here, and you'll see imagery throughout the course of the presentation today that is purely intentional. And I'll talk about the imagery and how it relates to the concept. But if we were to look at and think about our organization as a car or as an automobile, are we driving on broken wheels? Are we pushing towards our goals without an engine or without gas in the tank, or some other negative implication? When you bring high potential people to your organization and you recruit high potential people in an organization, but then the car breaks down, you start to experience lower passion, lower purpose, and lower motivation within your employees. And so what happens is you've built this organization that people come to because people want jobs and people want to grow in their gifts and skills. But if you're not maintaining it the right way, or if you're not maintaining it appropriately, it can and will break down at some point. And so when that happens, whether we acknowledge it or not, those high potential people that were excited to work at your organization, they ultimately lose their ability to produce high output. So that is the biggest way that employee engagement impacts your organization. If you are working intently at growing your organization and fixing the things that are broken, then you will continue to have high output. But if you neglect areas of concern, and we'll jump into some of those towards the latter part of the presentation today, but if you fail to address areas of concern, you can't help but have low output. And in this day and age where competition is increasing, the barrier to enter many markets is extremely low. The rise of the teleworking employee, the remote worker, and the fact that more and more people are relocating for their jobs or relocating for new opportunities, the chances are, if you don't work at these things, your best people are going to walk away. And worse, and if you drop a comment in the chat and you agree, worse, your poor performers are going to stay. So you have this thing of, if you don't maintain the level of engagement of the employees in your organization, your best and brightest are going to find somewhere else to go, and your low performers, there's a very strong chance that they're the ones that are going to stick around because they won't be compelled to move, and no one is going to compel them to move either. And we'll talk about accountability towards the end of our chat today. So collectively, when we scan the landscape, the work landscape across the US, how big of a problem is poor engagement? Well, I'm sure many of you know the Gallup organization. And if you aren't familiar with Gallup organization, part of what they do, or part of the services that they offer, is that they provide research about work and research about employee sentiment uh, and employee engagement. And so one of their recent research that they found, and there's been a continual trend of this, is that a majority of employees, 50.8%, on a scale of highly engaged to actively disengaged, they are not engaged, with another 17% actually being logged as actively disengaged. So what does that mean? That means 67.8%, more than half of your workforce, has they're just not compelled to put forth a great effort. They're not compelled to put in more effort than is required. They're not compelled to take that extra step that it takes to resolve a customer issue. They're not compelled to take the extra step that's required or even fulfill the responsibilities required of their job. When someone says that they are not engaged at work, there's no passion there. There's no sense of purpose. There's no sense of direction. And then when someone's actively disengaged, that means that they've gone from feeling to action. And that action that they're taking is, I am intentionally finding ways to not give my best at work. Wow. What would that mean for your organization if out of 100 people, 17 of them said, I am actively finding ways to not give forth an effort at work? That has a direct correlation to the output of your organization. That has a direct correlation to your profits, and that has a direct correlation to the morale within your organization. So employee engagement really matters. When we think about work and the world of work, historically, over the time that America has existed in the industrial age, previously in the industrial age, you looked at the workforce as a collective. You looked at the workforce and said, okay, we have these individuals. They're showing up to our factory. All the jobs are relatively similar, and we're more concerned with the output of the product as opposed to the quality of care and quality of comfort that we are giving to the employees. But now, as that has shifted to more of a knowledge worker environment, we are seeing the need to have individualized attention to all of our players at work. So the top 5 ways that poor engagement impacts your business, when you aren't looking at individuals as opposed to looking at the collective. Number 5 is that there's low morale, which reduces teamwork and commitment. Now, many of us are college graduates here, and if you can reflect on a time where you had a group assignment and there was that one person who consistently dropped the ball, what did that do for your teamwork and commitment? It brought it down. It brought it all the way down. But when you have low morale, it reduces teamwork and commitment. And that means that people aren't showing up to put forth the effort when others are relying on them. If we go back to that stat where almost 68% of our employees are either not engaged or actively engaged, this conversation that we're having right now is not a what if conversation. It is this problem is actually happening right now and we need to do something about it conversation. Because there's almost a 70% chance that your organization is experiencing these symptoms. And there may not be conversations in your organization to figure out why. Well, today we're going to figure out why, but this information is incredibly timely because you need to take this information to your leadership, to your staff, and find ways to improve right away to boost that teamwork and commitment by targeting things that lower morale. So lower morale will reduce teamwork and commitment, and then reduce commitment decreases customer satisfaction. If you've ever been on vacation and you walked into the gift shop, you were so excited about your travels, the experiences that you had, and you said to yourself or your travel partners, you know what? I really want to capture this moment. I want to take a piece of my travels home with me. And then you get to the gift shop and there's no one there to help you. The person at the gift shop is just putting forth a half effort in meeting your needs. How did that make you feel as a customer? How did that make you feel as a person who wanted to pour into a business, but you were just turned off because of the level of service that you received? That is why poor engagement impacts your business, because if there's reduced commitment from your team, that has a direct impact on the satisfaction of your customers. And you may be saying to yourself, if you work at a tech company where you produce software, or if you are in a manufacturing space and you produce actual physical things. So it's less about the interaction that a customer will have with your employees, and it's more about the level of interaction that your customers have with your products. Well, think about who creates those products. Think about these days where there have been tons of recalls. There have been, foodborne illnesses that have happened because either an employee missed a checkpoint or an employee failed to disclose something. Those are the signs of low commitment. Those are the signs of people saying, I'm just here to get a paycheck, or I'm just here to put in my hours 9 to 5 and go home. So my priorities are actually not my customers' priorities, but just making it through the day. And so when you have employees that adopt that mindset, and again, we're looking at about 60% of employees that have that mindset, that has a direct ripple effect on customer satisfaction. And while customer satisfaction, if it's low, that has a direct correlation to customer engagement. If we continue that analogy of the gift shop experience, where you just went on a cruise, or you went to Disney, or you went, somewhere fun with your family, and people ask you, "Oh, how was that? How was your trip?" We as humans are wired naturally to share negative information quicker and faster than we will positive information. So, you may talk to your friends and recap and say, "Oh, the trip was great. It was nothing special. But let me tell you about this employee that at the gift shop that just really paid me no attention, or they were so rude, or I asked them a question and they weren't able to provide an answer." When you have decreased customer satisfaction, that lowers customer engagement in the sense of the odds of them visiting your site, or going to your shop, or doing business with you, again, lowers. The sentiment that they have about you is not positive, it's a negative one. And that in turn is the word of mouth that they share with other people. Nowadays, our customers are also potential employees. So do you think that a customer is going to work somewhere where they had a bad customer experience? No, they're not. They're not. So as you're hearing me talk today, I hope you can see just how important the poor engagement is, how much of a crisis it is for a business, because we are turning away potential repeat business. We are turning away potential brand advocates through not paying attention to our employees. And when you have low customer engagement, that's when it really starts to impact your bottom line. And again, I started the presentation by saying people assume that HR is just a cost center and that what HR does for an organization has no correlation to the bottom line. But if you're following this cycle, this track that we've set here, you see how if we do a bad job of taking care of our employees, they do a bad job of taking care of customers, and then the customers do a bad job of supporting us. They're taking their dollars elsewhere. They're taking their favorable reviews elsewhere, and that is going to show up in the quarterly earnings call. That is going to show up on social media. That is going to show up at your in your as you close out the month and you're expecting great sales, but numbers have dipped. We scratch our heads like, why are we having lower customer engagement? But if we have the signs and symptoms of poor engagement at the office, then there's a correlation there. And so you might want to address those in order to tackle the customer engagement. And when you have lower profitability, if you've ever been a part of an organization that does a quarterly earnings call and they don't meet expectation and there has to be changes, or you work for an organization that goes through reorgs to save money, everyone knows that decreased profitability decreases morale. When the money's there and we can spend on holiday parties and we can spend on tuition reimbursement for our employees, and we can spend money on the bells, the whistles, the free snacks, everybody loves working at your company. But when budgets get tighter, morale lowers, and that just starts the cycle all over again. So we start with the morale. Low morale is low commitment. Low commitment is lower customer satisfaction. Lower customer satisfaction reduces your customer engagement, and lower customer engagement reduces profitability. There is a direct link between employee engagement and your bottom line. It may take a few steps to get there, but it is absolutely a ripple effect that can't be ignored. It just can't be ignored. So the cycle can either boost your business or bomb your business. Now, if on the flip side of the challenge that we're experiencing today, if employees have high morale, then there's higher commitment. Higher commitment results in higher customer satisfaction, and higher customer satisfaction means they're getting the word out. They're telling people about their awesome experience with your brand. They're repeat buyers. They're loyal to your organization. They want to work for your organization and refer people to work for your organization. That's a sign of the higher customer engagement, and that's what lifts your profitability. So if you get nothing else from this webinar today, I would walk into your CEO's office and say, hey, look, we need to address our morale issues. We need to understand and get a pulse check of our organization. Because if we don't know the pulse of our organization, we could be just like that car that I showed that's attempting to get where it's going, but you have three wheels that are gone and you aren't even paying attention. You don't notice. It's a blind side. So I'll leave this screen up a little bit more as I talk, but really jot this down. The cycle of engagement that starts with morale, commitment, satisfaction, engagement, and profitability. This is the linchpin that can unlock success at your organization. And as you write that down, I've got another question. Is the employee experience mostly positive or negative in your organization? If it's mostly positive, you're looking at mostly positive profitability. But if it's mostly negative, then you start to see, okay, maybe we need to intervene on what's going on here, because that is clearly affecting our bottom line. Okay, so the 5 practical actions to take to increase employee engagement. I remember, if you build an organization and you post jobs online, people are they're gonna apply. You know, they're gonna give you a chance. They're gonna want to work for your organization and put forth their best effort and bring all of the potential that they have into your organization. But if you don't monitor and maintain their experience at work, then they will decrease their level of commitment to your organization. And remember that conversation I had about imagery? Well, the number 5 thing that you can do, and the image here is of a firefighter, but the number 1 thing you can do, or the number 5, because we're counting down, is create and reinforce the story of your brand. Why do employees enjoy work? Well, one of the reasons is because they work towards a cause that they believe in. If anyone has heard me speak about the issue of employee engagement and really locking into your brand's mission, I often tell the story of the janitor who was sweeping floors at NASA when JFK came by, and the president asked the janitor. This was around the time of the Cold War, and NASA was in an arms race to get a man on the moon. And so the janitor said, the JFK asked the janitor, "Well, what's your job here? What do you do?" And the janitor said, "I'm here to help put a man on the moon." Well, NASA at that time had a very clear story of their brand and what they were attempting to accomplish. If you work for NASA, you are here to help put a man on the moon. And that is as much true for the head of the organization all the way throughout the organization. If you are a part of the team, you are focused on the mission critical task of getting a man on the moon. And for a janitor, that plays out in creating, clean environments for engineers and mathematicians and scientists and analysts and astronauts to work together on a technical level. But even what the janitor does matters. And so create and reinforce the story of your brand. Maybe spend some time with your marketing department and say, who are we as a business, and what are we really seeking to accomplish here? The image of the firefighter. If you spend some time and think and you reflect on this image, you can see that the firefighter is the hero of the story, and there is some chaos going on. He's calling the shots. He's saying, "Hey, there's a crisis going on, and we need to help save the day." So as you think about your brand story, and when you have that conversation with your marketing team, figure out who the hero is in your brand story. Which the pro tip is that it's always your customer. It's always your customer who should be the hero. Think about the antagonist of your story. What is that challenge? What is that problem that the hero needs to solve? And then you serve as the bridge between the hero and the challenge, and the hero overcoming that adversity. So if I worked at a gym, if I were a marketing or HR at a gym, I would say that the story of my brand is helping individuals become the best version of themselves and overcome, negative doubt, lack of confidence, and poor dietary and fitness habits. And so if that's the story of my brand, for the gym, I need to be able to find ways to inspire everyone to commit to that purpose. Because at the end of the day, people are engaging with you as a customer because they believe in what you're all about. And your employees go to work every morning because they believe in the purpose that they serve. That's what highly engaged employees do. They wake up, they get their coffee, they get their kids ready for school, they ride into work, and they say, I've got a big task to accomplish, and it matters to me because I believe in the work I do. When you have employees that are not engaged or actively disengaged, they get their coffee, they put their kids to bed, or they take their kids to school, they ride into work, and they say, oh gosh, I don't know how much longer I can do this. Or they say, well, it's fantasy baseball season now. Let me, between 9 to 10, I will set my picks. Between 10 to 12, I'll chat with my buddies about baseball scores. 12 o'clock is lunch. So I will go take my lunch. And then at 1 o'clock, I'll come back and figure out whatever I'm going to do for work. These I'm laughing as I say it, but the reality is, that's how our employees feel. And truth be told, if you're, looking at this course right now, there may be days where you feel that too. And so as a brand, as a person who's responsible for the brand, and if you're on this training today, you are a member that is critical in moving your brand forward. You've got to figure out what the story is. You got to figure out how to make your customers the hero, and you've got to identify what challenge you're getting them through, and you've got to understand how to position your brand as the bridge over troubled waters, for lack of a better word there. That's how you get your best people to stay. You get your best people to stay when they're fully aware of the problem that they're solving, the importance of the problem that they're solving, and why or what role they play. The next thing is you need to make sure that there's clarity of purpose, and that it's consistent from top to bottom. Now, our team did some research last year about, what are the things that people need to feel engaged at work? And one of those things was clarity from the CEO. So whether you're a for-profit business with a CEO, whether you are a nonprofit business with an executive director, or if you executive director and a board, or if you work in a school system with a principal, it's incredibly important for your employees at work to understand the top objectives and goals of your leadership. And you're probably shaking your head because you remember a time, or you may currently be experiencing time now, where that vision is so hazy that you don't know why you're showing up to work. When you look at this waterfall here, it's very clear, to see the water flowing from top to bottom, and that's the way that your mission should flow. That's the way that clarity should flow from your organization. It should be clear. It should be direct. It should be untainted. Managers down the line shouldn't be putting their spin on it, because that's how division can happen. But there needs to be clarity. So the janitor at NASA knows exactly why he's there. He's there to put a man on the moon. The person who's in charge of NASA, the astronauts, the engineers, the physicists, anyone who is responsible or anyone who has a role in the organization knows from top to bottom, this is what we're here to do. These are the top goals. We're marching forward. We understand what the measurable goals are, and we have clarity in how to do our job and get there. You want to establish mentorship opportunities as well. This was another key theme that appeared in our research, is that people who are either earlier in their career or newer to your organization, they want to know how to succeed at your company. They want to know how to succeed in your organization. And so when you have strong mentors, they'll help reinforce good behaviors and reduce bad ones. And when I say good behavior, bad behavior, it's not like a parent saying, "Oh, good job, here's a cookie." But no, it's like, "Hey, if you want to succeed here, if you want to win, if you want to be on board with our mission, here are the traits and attributes and activities that you need to do to be successful. Now, if you are reflecting on your time at work and you're saying, oh, well, we don't have these things. We don't have mentorship opportunities. Well, that could be one of the reasons why people are looking elsewhere, because we also know that people leave jobs for opportunities that show more chances for growth and professional development. So a mentorship program within your organization is an easy way, a very easy way to create learning, growth, excitement, engagement, not only about your business, but also about that person's career. And studies show time and time again, when you invest in a person's career, they don't just up and leave and go somewhere else. They actually stay. You know, the question of, oh, do we pay for an employee of ours to get a training or to go to school? They're just going to take that degree and they're going to go somewhere else. That doesn't happen typically. So that's a myth that we could bust, right now. But the top three thing is establishing mentorship opportunities, because that helps build that trust, that helps build that commitment, that helps people be accountable, and it helps provide a path for a person to grow, succeed, and contribute at your organization. But the next thing that you could do is provide outside opportunities for growth and development. That would include things like this call today, this course that you're taking, because innovation and inspiration, it happens from the outside in. When you have a organization that where only the good ideas happen from the inside, it's very hard to get a perspective of how those ideas relate to your competitors, how they relate to other industries. And so you can really start to think that something is a super great idea, and you can move it through and have it come to success at your organization, and it just bomb because it's internal thinking. Now you might be saying, well, Joey, you told us to have mentorship where we grow people and groom them and we show them how to do things our way. But now you're saying to get people to learn from the outside in. The reality is those things do go hand in hand, because when you grow from the outside in, that is introducing new concepts, new ways of doing things, new updates on how your industry is moving. And then you take that and you marry it with the mentorship opportunities in your organization. And that is how you create an innovative culture that takes key learnings from outside the organization and applies them consistently to the ways of success within your organization. The last one might be surprising, and you might feel like, why is this a part of employee engagement? But it all goes back to that group project scenario that was presented at the top of the training, where number one, by far, is to keep everyone accountable. This is the number one way to build trust and morale, and it ensures that people honor their commitments. Now, it's one thing to be excited about a strategy, but it's another thing to see that strategy come to fruition and it's a success and everyone's done what they need to do. If there were questions about how to execute, those things are addressed. That all comes through from holding people accountable, and holding people accountable from a task perspective, from a culture perspective, and saying, hey, you're on this team, you matter, you have to play your part. There's a football team, the New England Patriots, and Bill Belichick, the coach, his famous line, and this team has won countless Super Bowls. They're considered a dynasty in the sport of football. But his favorite line is, do your job. Now, when you hear the coach say, do your job, and he preaches, do your job, that mantra gets spread from top to bottom, and everyone can be reminded of, well, what's coach's number one priority? Do your job. Be accountable for the work that you do. Be accountable for the team that you're a part of. Be accountable for the impact that you have on customers, and know that it matters to your team. With that whole group project aspect, if someone drops the ball, are you going to rely on them in the future? That's probably not going to happen. You're going to try to find other ways to circumvent the person so that you don't depend on them. And so when you have a culture that keeps people accountable, that is the number one way to boost morale. When people show up to work and they say, I trust my team, people do what they say they're going to do. I have ways of checking in and finding ways to grow with my manager if I don't feel confident in my abilities to get something done. And when you have that level of conversation, you're going to see marked improvement. So where do you go from here? What do we do now that we are heading to the end of our time? You want to reflect on your company's engagement cycle and make positive interventions wherever you can. That engagement cycle is somewhat of a benchmark for you to take and apply to say, okay, how is our commitment? How is our customer experience? What are customers saying about us online? What's our profitability? What's our morale? And if you see any of those areas falling off or not meeting expectation, you can go right to the source and go back to see, okay, well, what are we doing right? What do we need to improve on? And what path should we take moving forward? And then you want to incorporate the 5 practical actions into your employee development practices so that your profits soar. Not only on our time today did I give you the why of why employee engagement matters, and that's because you want to keep your best employees and you want to motivate your lower performing ones, or help them select another organization. But you want to make sure that people are bringing their highest potential to work every day, and you want to make sure that they're able to express their highest potential by way of creating an exceptional customer experience. So that's the why. But we talked about the what as well, and the 5 practical actions. So if there are any questions about those practical actions, totally happy to address those in our Q&A time. But that's your roadmap. That's your next step. And when you do that, you're able to track the development of your employees and increase morale. And then just a quick, the 3 C's that I like to say. Hey, if you are someone in an organization and you don't have that level of influence, or you don't have that level of leadership within the hierarchy of your organization, and you're curious about, well, what can I change to be successful, and what can I change to impact our organization? You always have the ability to improve your communication. You always have the ability to improve the coaching and advice that you give within the context of your team. And you always have the ability to provide clarity in the way that you communicate with your staff. So these are things that you can change no matter what part of your organization you have influence over. And that all impacts corporate culture, and corporate culture is the sum of its parts. So when staff feels that you're intentional about their engagement, that starts to reflect in the atmosphere at work. And remember, leadership is responsible for creating the organization, and that's how they can be intentional about creating a organization that makes engagement a priority. HR is intentional about maintenance and monitoring that and making sure that things are on track. And then individual contributors can be accountable. They can coach, they can communicate, they can have clarity. Everyone has a role to play in making your organization a place that people not only are attracted to, but that they want to stay at as well. And so in summary, everyone is responsible for making sure employees are engaged at work. You want to intervene in the negative engagement cycle as soon as you can, because that will reverse the trend on your bottom line. We also talked about the 5 key areas that boost employee engagement and the 3 C's that help bring a positive change as well. And with that being said, we will leave some time for Q&A. And I want to thank you for joining the session today. And if you're looking to contact me, this final slide that we have here is my contact information, and we will leave time for Q&A at this time. Thank you for your attentiveness, and I wish you the best as you go and grow your organization.
All right. Thank you so much, Joey. As you mentioned, we're going to go ahead and take some questions now. If you do have a question, we have a questions section in the GoToWebinar control panel that is on the right. So feel free to type that in there. And we will be sending out the recording of today's session to everyone who has signed up for today, so that you will be able to take that back with you and review it on your own time, as well as Joey's contact information as well. So I'm going to give just a couple of minutes for some questions to roll in. I do have a question, Joey, actually for you, just in talking about remote employees. What would you say is the, I guess, one aspect? I know it's so hard when we as an organization are all together and then you have maybe 1 or 2 remote employees for the organization. Are there little things maybe that you can do? I know you gave 5 different strategies, but are there just little everyday things that can make people feel like they're more involved or included in the everyday process of the office that you can suggest?
Absolutely. It's one of those three C's, which would be communication. You want to make sure, if you are leading someone who is remote, or if you have a team member that's remote, that you touch base with them throughout the day. You give them a call. You set up a video conference, and that's a big way to make someone feel included. I also, there's tons of thoughts and theories about how to run a meeting and how to keep meetings successful. But I am a fan of starting meetings, not necessarily with a purpose, but starting meetings with the opportunity of telling people about, asking people how is their day, what are the things that are top of mind for them, that type of conversation. Because when you start a meeting with that, it really shows your team that you care about who they are as a person, as opposed to just what are we here to accomplish, and that helps build connectivity. So I'd say communication builds connectivity, and being intent with communication, not just about the work, but who that person is as a person.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you. I know that in our organization, we just got in the habit of doing video meetings, and something as simple as just saying goodbye to them when we're like wrapping up a meeting, I think is something that we often lose sight of, and that matters for remote employees. So that's awesome. So I don't think we have any questions. I think we were very concise. We don't really have anything that's going on in the question box. I'll just leave another minute or so here, just in case anyone has a follow-up question to Joey's last answer. But thank you so much. This was very, very helpful. I think this is a really important topic in terms of just retaining employees and keeping talent. I think it's huge to keep that engagement. So with that said, I think we've wrapped up all of our questions for today. If you would like to contact Joey, I spoke too soon. We do have a question. So what if there isn't an HR department and the folks at the top are too busy to deal with employee issues? Do you have any suggestions there, Joey?
Well, I guess I could give a quick plug and say that's exactly what we do at Jumpstart HR. But in addition to that, I would say if you could find someone within the organization that has the expertise of human resources, or if you could push for the owners to have intentional time around HR issues, it's amazing what you could do with just even an hour a week of pure intentionality around some of the topics that you just can't seem to find time to get around to doing. But I would not leave this to someone who is not an expert, because HR really matters at a high level. I mean, we talked about the importance of HR and it impacting your profitability. Well, your accounting, you wouldn't leave that up to someone that doesn't have experience. Legal matters, you wouldn't leave that up to someone who doesn't have experience. So that's why it's important to get that experience either in your organization or around your organization to cover it. It's incredibly important.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. And I hope, Caroline, that helped to answer your question that you have. Again, thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you so much, Joey, for hosting this webinar with us today. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and go Terps. Thank you.